Bump, bump, ba-dum, bump. Flora, Ulysses. By Kate.
DiCamillo.
Camillo. Do you want to shut the middle light off? The medium light. Mira, can you shut the middle light off? Thank you. So last week, we found out that Dad is sad without Flora, but they had an incident with Ulysses, and I think that has made Dad less sad. So Dad is less sad, and he is more glad.
Well, what?
Right?
Something's wrong.
Yeah. So now they have to go home to the arch nemesis. The one who wants to see Ulysses
Mom, know it.
in the ground. They also, Mr. Pelly calls it sneakers up. When you see an animal on the side of the road and they're not alive anymore, they're like sneakers up. Yes, yes, or bumped by a car or run over by a car.
My mom.
They walked into the house. This is chapter 43. And the little shepherdess was waiting for them. Remember who that is? Not a real thing, an inanimate object. The lamp. The lamp that Mom spent too much money on.
Was this a lamp?
She was standing there as she always stood, the lamp at her feet, the tiny globe above her head, and a look on her face that said, I know something you don't know. Laura's father took off his hat and bowed to the lamp. George Buckman, he said, how do you do? Hello, Flora shouted in the silence of the house. From the kitchen came the sound of laughter. Mom? Said Flora. No one answered. Flora's sense of foreboding deepened, expanded. And then her mother spoke, and she said, that's absolutely right, William. William? William? There was only one William that Flora knew. What would he be doing in the kitchen with the arch nemesis? And then came the familiar rattle of the typewriter keys being struck. Whack. The carriage returning, being hit. Ding! Ulysses' grip on her shoulder tightened. He let out a small chirp of excitement. Ulysses is excited that he is listening to the typewriter type. Put your coat on. That's what a coat is for. Her mother laughed again. Her laughter was followed by the truly terrifying words, thank you so much, William. Shh, Flora said to her father, who was standing listening with his hat in his hands and his goofy smile on his face. There was a small drop of blood on his ear bandage. It looked oddly festive. Why would a drop of blood look festive? You stay here, Flora said to him. Ulysses and I will go check this out. Right, you bet. I'll stay here, he said, and he put his hat on his head and he nodded. Flora, with the superhero on her shoulder, walked quietly through the living room, into the dining room, and stood before the closed kitchen door. She held herself very still. She made herself into a giant ear. She was getting extremely good at making herself into a giant ear. Flora listened, and she could feel Ulysses, his body tensed and expectant, listening too. Her mother spoke. Yes, it will go like this. Federico, I have a dream of you. I have dreamed of you for eons. No, said the other voice in a high, thin, extremely annoying tone. I've dreamed for you of all eternity. Oh, said Flora's mother. For all eternity. That's more poetic.
Wait, for Mom?
Ulysses shifted his position on Flora's shoulder, and he nodded. Yes, exactly, said William Spliver. More poetic. Eon sounds too geological. There's nothing romantic about geology, I assure you. Okay, said her mother. Right, what's next, William? Actually, if you don't mind, I would prefer to be called William Spiver. So William is helping Mom write her romantic novel. You need to turn all the way around. Thank you. You need to hear this.
Am I so hot?
Let me see. I suppose Frederico would say, and I have dreamed of you, Angelique, my darling. I must tell you that they're wild dreams so vivid and beautiful that I hate to wake to reality. Oh, hold on a sec. That sounds really good. The typewriter keys were clacking to life. Do you think that's good? Flora whispered to Ulysses. Do you think that's good writing? Ulysses shook his head. Wait, shook his head, nodding. His whiskers brushed against her. I don't think so either. Actually, she thought it was terrible. It was sickly, sweet nonsense. There was a word for it. Oh, there was a word for it. So girls and boys, think about this. The arch nemesis, AKA Mom, is taking advice from a, 12-year-old?
No.
Boy? William Spiver? Weird.
Not weird.
Having located the correct word, Flora felt a sudden need to say the word out loud, and so she did. She pushed the door open and she stepped forward. Treacle. I don't know that word. Treacle. Flora, said her mother. William Spiver was right there. Yes, said Flora. She was pleased that the one simple word she had answered two very important questions. Yes, she is Flora. Yes, this was sickening sweet. Her treacherous heart, chapter 44. William Spiver was wearing his dark glasses. Remember, he was like temporarily blind. There was a Fitzer pop in his mouth, and he was smiling. He looked exactly like
William.
a villain. There's the good guys and the bad guys. The good guys are good. The bad guys are
Bad.
villains.
That's sick.
They wear the dark hats, the dark coats. They are bad.
I do that.
He looked like a villain. That's what Flora's brain thought. But her heart, her treacherous heart, rose up joyfully inside of her at the sight of him. What?
I know what's gonna happen. I already watched the movie.
Rose joyfully inside of her at the sight of him. Flora's heart was actually glad to see William Spiver. There was so much she wanted to talk to him about. Pascal Rogers, Dr. Meacham, and other Dr. Meacham's giant squid, the giant donut, and who was dunking them. And if he had ever heard of a place called Blundermeakin, and if he had ever sat on a horsehair sofa. So much has happened since she left that morning for breakfast. But William was sitting beside Ulysses' arch nemesis, smiling. He's a traitor. Obviously, he could not be trusted. Flora Bell, said William Spiver. It's me, said Flora. I'm surprised you don't smell me, William Spiver, since you can smell everything. I have never, ever claimed to be able to smell everything. However, it is true right now that I am smelling
Everything.
squirrel. And there is another odor. It is something sweet and something of the school lunchrooms on a rainy Thursday. What is it? Ah, jelly. Yes, grape jelly. I smell squirrel and grape jelly. Grape jelly? Why would he be smelling grape jelly?
Maybe because she's having it.
Who was having grape jelly in his whiskers?
Peanut butter.
Peyton,
Ulysses.
when? Where?
Which is good. School at lunch.
At Dr. Meacham's house, when she gave them those little sandwiches, and he had a glob of grape jelly on the whisker. So initially I thought, what's the big deal? We don't need to know that information. But now it's all about Spiver, William Spiver, recognizing, because he's temporarily blind, recognizing that Ulysses is in the room. Squirrel? Said Flora's mother. She turned away from the typewriter and she looked at Flora. Squirrel? She said. Exclamation point. What in the world are you doing back here with that squirrel? I told your father. The Maleficent must be stopped. Her mother's Her mother, hands still poised over the keys of the typewriter, stared at Flora with her mouth open. William Spliver, for once, was silent. On Flora's shoulders, the squirrel trembled. Flora slowly raised her left arm. She pointed at her mother. What did you tell my father to do with the squirrel? Here's the picture, ladies and gentlemen.
I can't see. Oh, God.
William, mother, typewriter,
Paper.
Flora, balding squirrel.
At least I have a little bit of hair.
The squirrel is balding from when it was in the vacuum cleaner just a day before. It's only been a day since 146 pages ago.
It's been like 2 days.
On Flora's shoulder, the squirrel trembled. Flora slowly raised her arm. She pointed at her mother. What did you tell my father to do to the squirrel? I told your father. But the sentence remained unfinished. The truth unuttered. Because the kitchen door suddenly swung open to reveal Flora's father. George Buckman, how do you do? He said into the room. Of course, everybody knows him. Why is he introducing himself? He walked into the kitchen. He stood beside Flora. Flora, George, what in the world? You look like you've been in a battle. I'm fine, just fine. I was saved by the squirrel. What? I was attacked by Mr. Claus. He landed on my head and... This is fascinating, said William Spliver. But may I interrupt? Absolutely. Who is Mr. Klaus? Mr. Klaus is a landlord and also a cat. A large cat. Unusually large. He attacks ankles. This time he attacked my head. My head. It was very surprising to be attacked. I wasn't prepared. And, said William Spliver. Oh, yes. And Mr. Klaus bit my ear. And there was a lot of pain. And the squirrel rescued me. Is this true? Have you lost your mind? The author, DiCamillo, makes the character mother say one word at a time. Have you lost your mind? She does this to make you really feel
Okay, I need paper
it.
towels.
Have you lost your mind? I don't think so, said Flora's father, and he smiled hopefully. Can't you handle the smallest task? I asked you to take care of that squirrel situation. Flora felt a wave of anger roll through her. Quit speaking like that, euphemistically. Quit calling it the squirrel situation. You asked him to kill. You asked him to murder my squirrel. Ulysses let out a chirp of agreement. And then the kitchen became as silent
And the macaroons coming.
as a tomb. Dun, dun, dun.
That's a chapter.
That is
I knew it.
chapter 45, 4 words. It's the truth, Flora said. You told Pop to kill Ulysses. Having denounced her mother, Flora now turned her attention to William Spliver and the betrayal. What are you even doing here, William Spliver? Why are you in the kitchen with my mother? He's assisting me with my novel. William Spliver blushed a bright and otherworldly red. Otherworldly? I never heard of that word. I'm delighted that you find me of some assistance, Mrs. Buckman, he said. He took the Fitzer pop out of his mouth and bowed in the direction of Flora's mother. I must admit that I have always had a certain facility with words, and I am terribly fond of the novel form, though my interest lies less in the arena of romance and more in the speculative nature of things, science fiction, so to speak. Fact blending with fantasy and extended mediation of the nature of the universe. Oh my goodness, he talks like a tricky talker.
My dad, I do.
Do you know, for instance, that the universe is expanding as we speak? Only Ulysses responded to this question. The squirrel shook his head vigorously, obviously amazed. William Spliver pushed his dark glasses up higher on his nose. He took a deep breath. Speaking of expansions, You know there are now like 90 billion galaxies in the universe? It's such a universe. It seems ridiculous and foolhardy to attempt a creation of its own, but still, I persevere. I persevere. You didn't answer my question, William Spliver, said Flora. Let me try again. No, said Flora. You're a traitor. You are a traitor. And she wheeled her, pointing at her mother. And you are an arch nemesis, a true villain. Could you call your mother a villain and not get in trouble?
Yeah.
I couldn't, not even at my age.
I could.
That would be the utmost disrespect. I'm someone who wants what's best for you, and if that makes me a villain, fine, said her mother, crossing her arms like a mother would. What? Flora took a deep breath. I'm moving in with Pop, she said. Now them's fighting words. What? Her mother said. Really? Her father said. Your father, said her mother, doesn't know how to take care of himself, much less anyone else. No. At least he doesn't wish he had a lamp for a daughter, said Flora. I feel like I'm missing something, said William Spiver. I want to live with Pop, said Flora. Really? Said her father again. Go right ahead, said her mother. It would certainly make my life easier. Ouch. Make my life easier. Those 4 words, so simple, so small, so ordinary. Make my life easier. 4 words. Came flying, so very sad, came flying at Flora like an enormous slab of stone. Slapped her in the face. She actually felt herself tip sideways as they hit her. Sometimes people say things when they're angry that they shouldn't let come out of their mouth. Yeah, she doesn't really mean it. But this is how Flora's feeling. She feels as if the lamp is more precious than her as a daughter. She's not feeling very loved. She feels she loves the lamp. Mom loves the lamp more. She actually felt herself tip sideways as the words hit her. She put up a hand and held onto Ulysses, and she used the squirrel to steady herself. Do not hope, she whispered. But she wasn't sure what it was that she wasn't hoping for. All she knew was she was a cynic and her heart hurt. Cynics' hearts weren't supposed to hurt. They weren't supposed to feel. William Spiver pushed back in his chair and he stood. Mrs. Buckman, perhaps you would like to react to those last words? Or retract those last words? They seemed unnecessarily harsh. Even as an outsider, what, they just met that morning? Flora's mother said nothing. Awkward, uncomfortable. Okay, then. William Spiver remained standing. I will speak. I will attempt yet again to make myself clear. The only reason I am here, Florabelle, is I came looking for you. You were gone a long time, and I missed you, and I wondered if you had returned, and I came to find you. Aw, please don't pick that. Aw, those are kind words.
I want my mama.
Flora closed her eyes. She saw nothing but darkness. And into the darkness slowly swam the other Dr. Meacham's giant squid. Maybe that's why the author has us look at that squid, because that's how Flora is feeling. That giant squid with its arms, its tentacles. Where was I? Moving sadly along, flailing its 8 lonely and enormous arms. I came to find you. That was what it with William Spliver and the words he said to her. Why did they make her heart squinch up? Seal blubber, said Flora. I beg your pardon, said William. Ulysses gently pushed against Flora's hand. And then the squirrel leaped away from her. Oh no, said Flora's mother. No, not that. Ulysses flew over to Phyllis Buckman's head. He went high. And then he went higher still. Yes, said Flora. Yes. Where is the squirrel going? Why is the squirrel flying? Onto Mom's head. Chapter 46.
Wait.
Gianter.
Tomorrow.
Actually, we could read it today. It is one page of. He flew because he was a superhero. To the rescue. He was cheering up Flora. I always sing cartoons because I feel like they're dun 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 dun.
Now is it chapter over?
William Spliver said that this means there will be more of everything. More cheese puffs, more jelly sandwiches, more words, more poems, more love. More giant donuts. So this is Ulysses' point of view. Maybe even more gianter donuts. A gianter word. Woo! And he flew. So he wasn't flying at Mom. He was. Oh.
Because the world is expanding.
Because the world is expanding, according to William Spliver. Squirrels.
Yeah, so.
Why, Flora wondered, did everything become silent when Ulysses flew? Dun, dun, dun. To be continued.